Hello, dear friends. King Graves here with God's Sword. On this Thursday, I think the date is the 11th of December, but I'm not certain. The year is 2025, that I am certain of. But today we'll continue in the 17th chapter, actually just finishing the 17th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 17. It is evening, early evening, 6:45 p.m. It is the end of a busy day. I like the end of the day. I like the beginning of the day. I like the action in the middle of the day, but to me the day is best if at the end of it I can look back and see some accomplishments, things checked off, done. The hard days for me are the days where you're prevented really from much achievement. You're sort of prevented from accomplishing. Such days come. They're harder for me. Maybe you're like that. The final little story in the 17th chapter of Matthew begins at verse 24. I should not skip this final section. On verse 22, I don't think we covered that yet. Verse 22, and while they were gathering together in Galilee, Jesus said to them, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and he will be raised on the third day. And they were deeply grieved, as if they failed to hear the end of that statement. He will be raised the third day. He will be delivered, and he will be killed. He will be. He will suffer. But he will rise from the dead on the third day. Again, they were deeply grieved, not just grieved, but deeply, because they failed to fully understand. He said it plainly, though, didn't he? Now, verse 24. Now, when they came to Capernaum, those who collected the 2 drachmas tax came to Peter and said, does your teacher not pay the 2 drachma tax? And he said, yes. And when he came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first, saying, what do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth collect tolls or taxes? From their sons or from strangers? And when Peter said, from strangers, Jesus said to him, then the sons are exempt. However, so that we do not offend them, go to the sea and throw in a hook. And take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find a stater. Take that and give it to them for me and for you. So this particular tax, this event happens in Capernaum. That happens to be the town where Peter is from, and everyone knows that, including those who would collect that tax. I understand there were other opportunities. You didn't have to wait for them to come around and collect it. You could take care of it at the feasts when you're in Jerusalem. The purpose of the tax, 2 drachma tax, was the upkeep of the temple, God's house, the house of prayer. It was for the maintenance of the temple. It was commanded. And so the equivalent of, I think it's a day's or maybe 2 days' wages. But there were also plenty of people looking for an exemption. It's kind of like, I don't know, something like jury duty. In our culture, we're all very grateful for a system that would allow us the opportunity to be tried by a jury of our peers, but no one, I shouldn't say no one, but most do not wish to spend their time on a jury. Or, you've kind of, it's an interruption to one's whole life. And so many people are looking for an out, looking for an exemption. Well, certainly there were many who likewise looked for an exemption from this particular tax. And my understanding is that the very religious leaders, Pharisees, Sadducees, rabbis, they would find an exemption, apply for an exemption, or they would find one and take advantage of it. So the question comes, and it may well be that only Peter and our Lord are being confronted about this tax because they're in Capernaum, and they both reside there. And so when the Lord, in the end of the story, he pays, he tells Peter where he can find the means to pay for both him and Peter, which is quite cool. Why not the other guys? Well, again, probably the assumption is made that they've already taken care of that they did that in their own hometown, or that they'd done it at one of the feasts. But Peter's he's the one being confronted, not our Lord. Those who are collecting that tax confront him and they ask, they're essentially asking, has your master, your rabbi, your teacher, has he sought an exemption? Does he not pay the temple tax? Peter said, yes. And I don't know if Peter said yes because he actually knew that the Lord paid it, or is it just he was embarrassed? But before he can even ask the Lord anticipates, the Lord is ahead of him, and our Lord says, Simon, let me ask you a question. Who do the kings of this earth tax? Their own children or people outside their family? Strangers. It's a question that he didn't have to agonize over. It's kind of a no-brainer. They tax strangers. And the Lord said, well, then the children are exempt, aren't they? They're free. Then he said, but just so that we don't create some kind of scandal, we don't give them something to stumble over, that they be not offended, do this. And he sends Simon on a mission, a curious mission. This is not the only time he has done this or the only time that he will do it. But instead, it's worth noting that the man Jesus did not just reach into his deep pockets and pull out the cash. I believe a lot of money probably passed through the disciples' hands, and the Lord allowed the treasurer to keep it, to handle it, that treasurer being Judas. But just as it was in the temple, or in this case, just as it will be in the temple, when they question him about paying tribute to Caesar, the Lord will say, well, who has a coin? He doesn't reach into his own pockets. He doesn't seem to keep money. I think a lot of money passed through the hands of the disciples because people were grateful. People were giving, bringing gifts and support. And it's clear to me from the Last Supper that when Judas got up and left, leaving to actually go and arrange his betrayal of the Lord, those who saw him leave made the assumption that he was going to take care of some business because business is what he took care of, or that he was going to give a gift to the poor. That indicates that the Lord sent him to do that. I rather suspect, with regard to Judas, the only time that he ever gave to the poor, though he pretended to care about the poor in John chapter 13 at the Last Supper, the only time he ever actually did anything for the poor was when the Lord sent him. So it really wasn't Judas doing it at all. Judas was a thief. Well, so on the occasion When the Lord was being questioned about tribute to Caesar, he said, show me a coin. Someone threw him one. He didn't reach, again, into his own. He didn't have a bag of his own. He didn't keep the money. He had to say, show me a coin. And someone threw him one. And he catches it and goes, well, now look at that. There's somebody on that coin. Who is that? And they say, that's Caesar. Well, look, there's a name written here. Whose name is that? And no doubt the crowd said, that's Caesar. And the Lord said, well, I guess then that's Caesar's. No doubt throwing it back to them. He said, you give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. And on this occasion, once again, our Lord does not carry money around. He doesn't have a bag to reach into and say, here, Simon, but instead, demonstrating his connection with creation, that he is actually the creator, he sends him on a somewhat humbling mission. It would require faith at every step. Simon, go down to the lake. Throw in a hook. The first fish. Now, what are the laws of probability? He didn't tell him exactly where, on the shore, at what spot on this great lake. Just go down to the lake, go to the sea, cast in your hook. When you pull up this fish, look in his mouth, he'll have the money you're looking for to pay for both of us. It's amazing. Take a hook, go to the sea, throw in a hook, take the first fish that comes up. Not the second, not the third. The very first fish. Look in his mouth. The means will be there to pay for you and I both. What a curious thing the Lord does. This is the same Lord who does not seem to heal blind men the same way twice. Or the deaf. He doesn't always put his fingers in their ears, but he did on one. He is not bound by method. He'll do what he wants, the way he wants, when he wants. Still that way. So the Lord, he sends Peter on a mission which will take faith, and a mission that has incremental steps. First, go get a hook, then go to the sea. Choose a spot at the sea. And note that Peter does not ask him, well, exactly where? And exactly what kind of fish am I looking for? Should I bait it? There's none of that. Just that very basic instruction. Go to the sea, cast in a hook, first fish has your money and mine. And I love the fact that he says, pay for me and you and me. Don't you like that? That the Lord said, you and me, take care of that tax that they're expecting from us. Our brother David Guzik points out that Charles Spurgeon pays the tax, but he takes the money that he pays the tax out of the royal treasure. He's the creator. And so, in a very real sense, he receives from God the Father the money delivered by a fish. A fish, somehow someone ended up with money in the water. There's a fish that sees something shiny, and that fish swallows it. And the fish happens to come up with the very next shiny thing he sees, might be Peter's hook, but in just the right place, at just the right time. I'm certain that even the fish thought he's doing his own will. But he was actually doing the will of another. Isn't that an intriguing thought? So the fish delivers. It's not that different, truthfully. I suppose it's different in how, but what do we have to give ever to God that we didn't already get from him, that isn't, in a sense, already his. The giving is good for us. It's right that we should do it. But we cannot give. We have not first received. Maybe in our case, the receiving comes through our job, the job that we do and the pay we receive. But don't in any way think that God is any less involved than he was in this story with Simon Peter just pulling the money out of a fish's mouth. Can you not imagine Peter just laughing, landing the fish? Was he in a hurry or was he reluctant to look in this fish's mouth? I don't know. But ultimately, he opens the fish's mouth, and this fish is like a living wallet. It's like a living purse. He opens, and he reaches in. You gotta wonder, did he throw the fish back? Did that ever happen with them? I don't know. But I'm absolutely sure that it would be absolute madness for Simon to pull the money and go, well, thank you, fish, and then, discard the fish back into the sea. He was in awe of God. And with the connection that he has with God in the flesh. Well, it's a beautiful thing. The Lord paid. He paid a debt that he did not owe for me and for you, for all of humanity. He went to the cross. He suffered in our place. He paid. He paid such a debt. The old song, he paid a debt I did not owe, and I owed a debt I could not pay. I needed someone to wash my sins away. Amen. It's a good story. Love this story. I want more detail. When I get to heaven, I will ask Peter all about it. But as I've said before, I think the books will be open and we can consult the books. We can, whatever form these records are in, I rather think that God's records are so much better than just words written on a page, as they are in this age. And they're better than, like video, even digital video. I believe his books, his records, are recorded in such a way, contained in such a way that I believe we can enter the book, step into the book, enter the event. We'll see when we get there. There's your study for today, and I appreciate your following along and your patience with me as a teacher. And if you have comments, they're welcome. ccbangor.org. All right. Grace and peace to you all.